You ever have that moment where your brain goes completely still, like a radio that just cut to static? That was me, standing in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, the smell of cinnamon rolls still lingering in the air, and my mother's voice crackling through the speaker like it was nothing. Your brother is bringing his girlfriend to meet the family. He doesn't want your kids there. They'd ruin the perfect image. And just like that, Christmas was off the table. For me. For my daughters. For the little traditions we'd kept alive even after being edged out year after year. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said, I understand, and hung up. But that was only the beginning. My name's Robert. I'm 36, divorced, and the father of 2 girls, Emma, 9, and Lily, 6. They're the kind of kids who sing Christmas carols off-key and put glitter on everything. And yeah, maybe they're loud sometimes, but they've got more heart in one pinky than most people I know. I've raised them mostly on my own since my ex-wife left 5 years ago. She's not really in the picture. My daughters are my world. I work full-time at a local mechanic shop, but I always make time for them, especially around the holidays. We do everything: bake cookies, make snow angels, cut out paper stars for the tree. I've always done my best to give them the kind of childhood I never had. Growing up, things were complicated. My twin brother, Ryan, and I were close as kids, identical down to the birthmarks on our left wrists. But everything changed somewhere in high school. I guess you could say Ryan figured out how to play the game. He became the golden boy, the athlete, the charmer, the one who always knew how to get a smile out of mom and dad. I didn't mind at first. I was more reserved, more comfortable fixing bikes than throwing touchdowns. But as we got older, the gap widened. It wasn't just that he was favored, it was that I was forgotten. When Ryan got a full ride to college, they threw a party. When I decided to go to trade school and stay local, crickets. When Ryan got engaged to a girl who looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover, Mom posted about it on Facebook like she'd just won the lottery. When I got married, she told me she hoped it worked out. Spoiler, it didn't. And I know what you might be thinking: bitterness, jealousy, some unresolved twin rivalry. Maybe there's a little of that. But mostly, I've just come to accept the fact that my parents see me as an afterthought, a background character in Ryan's perfect narrative. And I'd made peace with that, more or less. I kept my distance, showed up to the big holidays, tried to play nice. For the girls. Because even if I wasn't the favored son, I still wanted them to feel like they had a family, like they belonged somewhere. And every year, Christmas was our one thread of connection. I'd bake cookies with the girls, wrap up the handmade gifts we'd spent weeks on, and bring them over to my parents' house. We'd sit through the awkward small talk, the sideways glances, and Ryan's smug smile while he opened yet another just because gift from Mom. And still, my girls would laugh and run around and light up the place in ways I never could. I thought that mattered. But apparently, this year, Ryan had a new girlfriend. And she was special. According to Mom, she came from a real family, whatever that means. Educated, classy, put together. She's the one, Robert. Your brother says she could be it. Mom had gushed a few weeks ago. I remember I was standing in the grocery store aisle holding a frozen turkey when she called me out of the blue. So we're going all out this year. The whole house is getting redone. New lights, real tree, even catered food. Can you believe it? Ryan's finally bringing someone we can be proud of. That should have been the first red flag. I laughed it off at the time. Thought she was just being dramatic. Then came the call. 2 days before Christmas Eve. I had just finished helping Lily glue pom-poms onto a hand-cut snowman when the phone rang. The conversation lasted less than a minute. Your brother is bringing his girlfriend to meet the family. He doesn't want your kids there. They'd ruin the perfect image. No emotion. No apology. Just a cold, clinical rejection disguised as concern for aesthetics. I asked if I had done something wrong. She just sighed and said, "You understand, right?" I said I did. And I meant it. Not because I agreed, but because I finally saw it clearly. The truth I'd spent years trying to ignore. I didn't tell the girls. Not yet. I couldn't break their hearts like that. They had spent the past 2 weeks drawing pictures for Grandma and practicing their little Christmas song to perform after dinner. Emma had even made a bracelet for Uncle Ryan out of plastic beads. She spelled his name with hearts on either side. It was sitting in a small red box under our tiny apartment tree. I stared at it for a long time that night. Thought about calling Mom back. Thought about telling her how cruel that was. But what would be the point? She'd already chosen her golden son. Again. The next morning, I made pancakes shaped like snowmen and we watched Elf in our pajamas. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check my email. I just spent the day with my girls, pretending like nothing was wrong. But around noon, there was a knock at the door. At first, I thought it might be the mailman. Then I heard the voices. My mom, my dad, Ryan, and someone else. A woman's voice I didn't recognize. I opened the door, still in sweatpants, and there they were, Mom with her arms crossed, Dad frowning like he'd just smelled something foul, Ryan with his usual smug smirk. And next to him, a woman in a deep green coat with dark hair and sharp eyes, looking me up and down like she was seeing a ghost. Before anyone could say a word, she stepped forward and tilted her head. "Wait," she said slowly, narrowing her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me he had a twin brother?" Then she looked at my parents, one eyebrow raised. "He's the one I saw in those old photos." "Not him." Ryan's face went white. My parents froze. And for the first time in years, I didn't have to say a word. I just stepped back and held the door open. "You're welcome to come in," I said to her, and only her. And that's when everything truly started to unravel. She stepped into my apartment like someone waking up from a dream, her eyes darting around the room. First to the girls' paper snowflakes taped across the windows, then to the construction paper garland drooping over the television, then finally to the Christmas tree in the corner. It wasn't much. Just a 4-foot pre-lit fake pine I'd picked up from a secondhand store 2 years ago. The lights flickered slightly. Lily had insisted on putting her stuffed bear on the top instead of a star. I hadn't had the heart to say no. "Sorry about the mess," I said casually, stepping aside so she could pass. "We were making ornaments this morning." She smiled, but her eyes never left the tree. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Behind her, the silence from the hallway thickened. Ryan still hadn't moved. He looked like he'd just seen someone crawl out of his skin. Mom was the first to break the spell. "Robert," she snapped, pushing past me without waiting for an invitation. "What is going on here? Why didn't you tell us you were planning something today?" "Planning something?" I echoed. "You told me not to come. Said the girls would ruin the image." She flushed. "Well, clearly that was a misunderstanding. Your brother's girlfriend was just confused, that's all. She must have seen an old picture of you two from when you were younger." "No," the girlfriend said. Her name was Claire, I learned later. She was still staring at me, her face pale but composed. "I'm not confused. The photo your mother showed me was from that Christmas where Ryan had just turned 17. The one in front of the red Chevy truck. The boy in that picture had a scar above his left eyebrow." She stepped closer to me, and then gently pointed at my forehead. "You have that scar. He doesn't." I watched Ryan's jaw tighten, his shoulders rigid. The air in the room shifted. Dad cleared his throat. "That was 20 years ago. You're mistaken. You saw Robert in a photo and confused him for Ryan. It happens." Claire didn't budge. "It doesn't happen when it's your supposed boyfriend," she said coldly. "It doesn't happen when you've seen a dozen childhood photos and none of them look like the man you've been dating. It's like you've been selling me a lie." Ryan finally stepped inside, the sound of his boots heavy against the floor. "All right, that's enough. Claire, don't embarrass yourself." "Oh, I'm not embarrassed," she said, turning to face him now. "I'm just realizing that this entire time, I've been shown someone else's past. Your mother made me a scrapbook. You remember that, right? Full of family memories. She was so proud of it. But looking at it now, it was all photos of him." She pointed at me. The girls had come out of their room by then, Emma holding Lily's hand tightly. They peeked around the corner, unsure what to make of the unfamiliar voices. I nodded at them gently, mouthing, "It's okay." Lily clutched her bear and stayed silent. Claire glanced at them, and something in her face softened. "You have kids?" she asked me. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emma and Lily. They were excited for Christmas, but I guess we didn't make the cut this year." Claire blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "He means," Mom cut in sharply, "that this was supposed to be a small gathering. A mature, elegant introduction. Not a playdate." "Playdate," Claire repeated, her voice rising. "You told me Ryan had a twin brother. You never mentioned him by name. And the only kids you talked about were Ryan's nieces. You said they lived out of state." "They do," Mom said stiffly. "No," Claire said, turning back to me. "They're his daughters, aren't they?" I nodded. Claire looked back and forth between my parents and Ryan, and then slowly took a step back like she was seeing everyone for the first time. Why would you lie about that? Why pretend your own son doesn't exist?" The room went dead quiet. Ryan finally found his voice. "This isn't about that," he said firmly. Robert has always played the victim. You don't know him. You're getting caught up in some pity story. Really? Claire said. Because all I know is that the first time I felt like someone in this family saw me, really saw me, it was the guy you've been pretending never existed. I didn't pretend, Ryan muttered. Mom just used the wrong photos. No, I used the best photos, Mom said without missing a beat. I wasn't going to include the ones where you looked awkward. Robert always had the better smile as a kid. More photogenic. That doesn't mean anything. Claire was speechless. I watched the whole thing unfold like I was outside of my own body. And for a brief second, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe now that someone else saw it, someone outside the family, the spell would break. That finally, someone would call it out, and everything would start to make sense. But no, because Ryan recovered quickly. Too quickly. He moved toward Claire and took her hand. Let's go, he said gently. This is all just noise. We came here to be together. Let's not get sidetracked. She didn't move. And that's when Mom turned to me and said the one thing that lit the match. This is exactly why we didn't invite you, she hissed. You always find a way to ruin everything. Even when you're not supposed to be part of it. You show up. You make it about you. Your kids running around. Your apartment smelling like syrup, and whatever this is, she gestured at the paper decorations. It's not what we wanted for today. Ryan wanted a quiet, classy evening. Not glitter and noise in your drama. My throat tightened. I didn't yell. I didn't even speak. But Emma did. She came around the corner, her eyes wide and shining, and said quietly, Grandma, why don't you like us? You could have heard a pin drop. Claire took a step toward her, crouched down, and said, Hey, sweetie. I like you. I think you're amazing. What's your name? Emma, she whispered. And is this your sister? Emma nodded. Lily. She's shy. Claire smiled. That's okay. I used to be shy too. My mom cleared her throat again. Claire, don't let this confuse you. Robert's kids aren't bad, but they're not the right fit for. Claire stood up. For what? Your family? Your perfect little image. We just wanted the evening to go smoothly, Dad muttered. Without any unexpected chaos. You mean kids, Claire said. No one answered. She looked around again. And this is the family I was supposed to be joining. Ryan's face had gone hard, his eyes flat and cold. Claire, he said under his breath. Enough. She looked at him, really looked at him. Did you lie to me about your childhood? I didn't lie. You let your parents pretend someone else's life was yours, she said. That's a lie. You're being dramatic, Ryan snapped. We came here to meet, not dig up ancient family garbage. And then, as if on cue, Emma said, I made you a gift, Uncle Ryan. She ran to the tree and grabbed the red box. She held it out, and he didn't take it. He didn't even look at it. Claire did. She reached out and took the box gently, opened it, and pulled out the beaded bracelet with RYN spelled in colored letters. There were 2 little red hearts on either side. Did you make this all by yourself? She asked. Emma nodded proudly. Claire slid it onto her wrist. It's perfect, she said. Ryan let out a harsh breath. Claire, let's go. She turned to him. I'm staying here for a while. You go. He stared at her, stunned. You're serious? He asked. I've never been more serious, she said. And if I'm wrong about who you are, then that's on me. But something tells me I've only seen the surface of this whole story. And right now, I think I'd rather hear it from the person who's actually lived it. She turned to me. If that's okay. I looked at her. Then I looked at my parents. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. Dad looked away. Ryan took a step back. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear on his face. Real fear. Claire stayed. That night, after my parents and Ryan left in a flurry of confused silence and fake smiles, I made hot chocolate for everyone. Emma and Lily brought out their pillows and blankets, and we watched the Polar Express for the 3rd time that week. Claire sat beside them on the couch, her eyes soft but distant, the bracelet still snug around her wrist. She didn't ask me questions that night, didn't press or dig. She just stayed. And in doing so, she did more than anyone else in my family had done in years. She saw me. After the girls fell asleep on the couch, I quietly moved them to their room, tucking them in and turning on their night light. When I came back, Claire was still sitting there, holding a paper snowflake in her hand like it was made of glass. I'm sorry, she said, not looking up. For all of that. You didn't do anything. I feel like I did, she whispered. I believed everything they told me. I didn't ask questions. I just assumed it was true. I sat across from her. Most people do. Why? The word hung in the air like smoke. I didn't have a good answer. Or at least, not a short one. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. My brother learned early on how to be what they wanted. It's not that he was better. He just played the part. Said the right things, wore the right clothes, dated the right girls. I never fit that mold. I liked fixing things, getting my hands dirty. I was quiet, awkward sometimes. I didn't want to be the star of the show. I just wanted peace. Claire nodded slowly, her eyes finally meeting mine. They made you disappear. I gave a small, sad smile. Not all at once. Just piece by piece. She stayed another hour before calling a friend to pick her up. We didn't say goodbye. She said she'd be in touch. I wasn't sure if I believed her. Part of me expected her to vanish like everyone else did once they saw the cracks in the perfect image. But she didn't vanish. That week between Christmas and New Year's was strange. Quiet. Almost eerie. My phone didn't ring. No texts. No apologies. I figured Ryan and my parents were scrambling to salvage whatever narrative they'd tried to sell her. I didn't care. I had my girls, and for the first time, we had our own space, free from judgment, expectations, or disappointment. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from being erased by the people who are supposed to know you best. It wasn't new. But that week, it felt heavier. On New Year's Eve, I put the girls to bed early. I didn't have the heart for fireworks or fake countdowns. I just sat on the balcony with a blanket over my shoulders and a cheap beer in my hand, watching the neighborhood light up with distant sparks. And that's when my phone buzzed. Claire. Hey, I hope it's okay, I texted. I've been thinking about what you said. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. It's okay. I've been thinking too. We ended up texting until 2 a.m. Nothing heavy, just small talk. Memories. Jokes. I learned that she used to play piano competitively, that she hated olives, and that her favorite Christmas tradition was building gingerbread houses and then smashing them on New Year's Day. She made me laugh. I don't remember the last time that it happened without effort. Over the next few weeks, things changed. She came over again. First with leftover cupcakes from a bakery she liked. Then with a stack of children's books for the girls. Then just because. We never labeled anything. I didn't want to. I wasn't ready for complications. I was still rebuilding myself, brick by brick. And that's where the Rayal story begins. Because that winter was the turning point. Not the drama at the door. Not the humiliation or the silence that followed. But what I chose to do after. The shop I worked at had been cutting hours. The owner was getting older and didn't want to expand. I'd been floating for a while, just barely keeping ahead of bills. But now, with the new year stretching out in front of me, I knew I had to do something different. Not just for me, for my girls. So I started working weekends at a buddy's garage, helping him fix up old motorcycles and resell them online. At first it was just for extra cash. Then it became something more. I'd always loved engines. The way things fit together. The satisfaction of turning a dead machine into something roaring and alive again. My buddy, Dave, suggested we go in together on a side project. A flipped garage. Old cars, vintage bikes, custom rebuilds. I hesitated. I'd never started anything before. Never believed I could. That voice, my mother's, my father's, maybe even my own, always echoed in the back of my head. You're not the one they bet on. Stay in your lane. But Claire didn't hesitate. She said, you've already been running a life solo for years. You've raised 2 girls, held a job, kept a roof over your head, and still made time to build glittery reindeer. You think starting a business is harder than that. She smiled when she said it, but her eyes were serious. You're the engine, she added. You've just been stuck in someone else's garage. So I did it. I pulled the trigger. In February, I filed the paperwork for Twin Wrench Garage. Claire helped me design the logo, a silhouette of 2 gears, one slightly rusted, one shining. I didn't say it out loud, but the symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. Dave and I split the rent on a small warehouse at the edge of town. Cold, drafty, but full of potential. I bought secondhand tools, repainted the walls myself, brought the girls on weekends, and let them scribble chalk art on the cement floor while I worked. Lily named the coffee machine Robo Joe. Emma insisted on a disco ball in the bathroom. We posted our first bike for sale in March. It sold in 2 days. By April, we had a backlog of orders and custom jobs lined up. Claire stopped by once a week, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to sit and talk while I worked. She never brought up Ryan. I never asked. There was an unspoken understanding between us. This space, this world I was building, it wasn't about them anymore. It was mine. And for the first time in my life, I started to feel proud. Not just because of the money, though that helped. Not just because of the independence or the fresh coat of paint on my future, but because my daughters would grow up watching their dad do something real, something honest, something that wasn't handed down or approved by people with strings attached. They started calling the garage Daddy's castle. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Then came June, Emma's 10th birthday. I'd saved up and surprised her with a handmade go-kart we'd built together. Painted purple with flames on the sides and glitter on the wheels, of course. We threw a party in the parking lot of the garage. Claire brought cupcakes. Dave grilled burgers. Even Lily helped run the juice stand we set up. It was the happiest I'd seen them in years. And then, at the edge of the crowd, I saw a familiar car pull up. Silver Mercedes. Mom's. She stepped out in heels far too tall for a parking lot, wearing a white blouse and gold earrings. Like she was on her way to church. I didn't move. She walked up slowly, arms folded. Ryan was behind her. Claire stood next to me instantly. Robert, my mother said smoothly. We need to talk. I looked at Emma, who was laughing in the distance with her friends. Then at Lily, who was trying to blow up a balloon bigger than her head. No, I said calmly. We don't. You've made your point, she said, her smile tight. But this has gone far enough. Claire stiffened beside me. Far enough? I asked, keeping my voice level. You've made yourself the victim, she said. Humiliated your brother. Poisoned Claire against us. Is that what you wanted? Attention. I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. I didn't poison anyone. Claire has eyes. And ears. You did this all by yourself. She took a step forward. We're still your family, Robert. No matter what. No, I said softly. You were. Once. But I stopped being yours a long time ago. Ryan finally spoke. You think this business makes you better than us? I turned to him slowly. No, but it sure made me better than you. And that was the first time I saw him go quiet. Completely quiet. Claire took my hand. Not dramatically. Not for show. Just because she wanted to. My daughters ran toward me with purple frosting on their cheeks. And in that moment, standing in the middle of an old garage with a disco ball bathroom, a go-kart, and a woman who chose me, I realized I had already won. They left before the cake was even cut. My mom turned on her heel the second she realized she wasn't going to get a clean redemption arc in front of the other parents. Ryan gave me one last look, a strange mixture of fury and disbelief, like he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that I'd said no, that I'd drawn a line, that I was no longer the twin living in the corner of his spotlight. But I had changed. Quietly. Permanently. And somewhere along the line, their absence had stopped hurting. That was the part that scared them the most. I didn't need them anymore. It was around that time Claire started coming by more regularly. She never made it weird or rushed. She wasn't like that. But it was clear she wasn't just checking in anymore. She cared. Not just about me, but about the girls, the garage, everything. She'd show up on slow afternoons with paint swatches and say things like, "You should really brand your space better. It looks like a storage unit with a soul." Or she'd bring her laptop and help me organize the orders and finances, setting up spreadsheets and scheduling tools I didn't know I needed. She even designed little business cards with Emma's help. They said, "Twin Wrench Garage, fix what they forgot." It made me laugh. It also made me think. There was something poetic about it. Fix what they forgot. Claire asked me once, on a rainy Tuesday when the girls were coloring inside the office and we were both sipping bad coffee from mismatched mugs, "Do you want them back?" It wasn't out of nowhere. We'd been talking about family, about boundaries, about how most people don't get the closure they think they need. I thought for a long moment. I don't want them back, I said finally. I want them to feel what it's like to be on the outside looking in. She nodded, not judging. That sounds fair. Then she smiled faintly. And it sounds possible. That was when the first seed was planted. See, revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be destructive. Sometimes, the best revenge is just showing up in places they never thought you'd reach. Quietly, effortlessly. Places they worked hard to keep you out of. And I had just started to realize that I might be heading toward one of those places. Because business was booming. What started as a side hustle was now a full-time operation. Dave and I were booked 3 months out. Word of mouth had spread like wildfire. People loved the transparency, the quality, and the fact that we didn't try to nickel and dime them for fake problems. We were getting offers to collaborate with local dealerships, vintage shows, even one of the high-end car clubs in the next city over. One of those offers came from a guy named Leon. He was the manager of a high-profile auto restoration company with deep pockets and deeper connections. He'd seen our work through a client who'd bought a custom Triumph bike from us and invited us out to an event in late August, a kind of networking showcase/fundraiser for car enthusiasts, garage owners, and potential investors. "You should go," Claire said immediately when I showed her the invite. "This is where the real doors open." "I don't know," I admitted. "These events are fancy. I don't even have a blazer that doesn't smell like oil." "I do," she smirked. "And you're going." I didn't argue. She even helped me pick out an outfit: navy blazer, black dress shirt, jeans just clean enough to pass as stylish. She looked stunning in emerald green, the same color she wore that night when she first saw me at the door. We dropped the girls off at Dave's place for the evening and drove out to the venue. And that's when the plan started forming. Because when we arrived, the first person I saw was Ryan, standing near the open bar, drink in hand, grinning in that effortless way that had always gotten him out of trouble. Except this time, the crowd around him wasn't laughing with him. They were nodding politely, pretending to listen. Claire stiffened beside me. "What is he doing here?" she asked under her breath. "Probably networking. He works for a real estate firm now. One of those lifestyle brand companies trying to turn car culture into some Instagram aesthetic," I muttered. "They probably want in on the auto scene. Experiential garages, or whatever." She narrowed her eyes. "You should go say hi." "Are you serious?" "Oh, I'm very serious." She didn't push me, but she didn't need to. Because suddenly, I realized something. He didn't know. He didn't know I was here, and more importantly, he didn't know who I'd become. That realization was electric. I didn't walk straight up to him. I worked the room first. Leon introduced me to a few restoration collectors, a couple local investors, even the guy running the city's vintage auto expo in the fall. I handed out cards. I shook hands. I smiled. And when people asked what Twin Wrench Garage was all about, I kept my answer short. We fix what they forgot. By the time Ryan noticed me, it was too late. I was already deep in conversation with a man named Carson, an older guy in a tan suit who owned 3 vintage Jaguars and was looking for a custom rebuilder. Carson had just said something about finally finding someone who doesn't talk down to me about torque specs, when Ryan appeared beside me like a magician appearing from smoke. Well, he said smoothly, "Small world." Carson smiled and stepped away to get another drink, promising to circle back. I turned to Ryan. "Guess so," I said. He was still smiling, but I could see the twitch in his jaw. "I didn't know you were into this scene," he said. "I wasn't," I replied. "Not until I built something worth bringing." "Built?" he echoed. "Twin Wrench Garage. That's mine. Me and Dave." He blinked. I watched the gears turn behind his eyes. "Oh," he said finally. "You're the guy with the custom bikes. And cars. And restoration jobs. We're expanding next year." He tried to recover quickly. "Well, congrats. Sounds like you've come a long way from fixing brake pads in your apartment lot." I smiled. "Yeah. Turns out when you're not spending your time trying to impress people, you get a lot more done." He looked around, clearly trying to find an escape hatch in the conversation. "So, you're here with someone?" Before I could answer, Claire stepped beside me, holding 2 drinks. "Hi, Ryan," she said sweetly. "Didn't think we'd run into you here." His eyes widened for just a second, just enough to let the mask slip. Claire handed me one of the drinks. "Your brother's quite the star tonight," she said to him. "People keep asking him questions. You should have heard Carson. Called Robert the most refreshingly honest mechanic he's ever met. Isn't that something?" Ryan's smile returned, brittle and stretched. "Yeah, something." He left soon after. That's when the idea solidified. Not petty revenge. Not confrontation. Visibility. See, for years, they'd rewritten the narrative. Made me the shadow. The cautionary tale. The disappointing twin. But they did it with one key advantage. I wasn't visible. I didn't fight back. I didn't exist to the people they showed off to. All they had to do was keep me out of frame. But now I was in the frame. Center stage. And they couldn't crop me out anymore. Over the next few weeks, I leaned into it. Claire helped me set up an Instagram page for the garage. High-quality photos of builds, customer testimonials, time-lapse videos of engine overhauls. Emma and Lily made an appearance now and then, little cameos in the background, dancing in coveralls or painting tires with chalk. We launched a YouTube channel. Simple videos. How to check your spark plugs. Restoring a 1968 Mustang. Day 1. The views climbed. Not viral, but steady. Loyal. Then the local paper ran a feature. From the ground up, Twin Wrench Garage brings heart back to custom builds. They quoted me. They quoted Claire. They even quoted Emma. My parents didn't call, but I know they saw it. How? Because 3 weeks later, I got a formal invitation to a family legacy fundraiser hosted by my parents' country club. Ryan was listed as a featured speaker. The theme? Building a legacy, family, growth, and the road ahead. Claire laughed so hard she nearly dropped her wine. You going? She asked. I didn't answer right away, but I was already thinking, why not? The invitation was printed on thick ivory cardstock, sealed with a gold crest I didn't recognize. Probably something Ryan had designed to look impressive. At the top, in elegant cursive, family legacy, an evening of heritage, community, and vision. Beneath that, Ryan's name, keynote speaker. I turned the card over, half expecting some sort of apology scribbled in the margins. Nothing. Just the time, the dress code, and a tiny note at the bottom. Black tie only. Claire read it over my shoulder and snorted. So dramatic. You'd think they were inaugurating a president. More like crowning a prince, I muttered. She looked at me. You still want to go? I thought about it. About everything they'd said. Everything they'd done. The years of silence. The scraped-together Christmases. My daughters asking why Grandma didn't want to see them. My mom pretending I didn't exist to protect Ryan's image. And then I remembered the bracelet Emma had made. The one Ryan never took. And how Claire had worn it for weeks afterward like it was a badge of loyalty. I nodded. Yeah, I think I do. We didn't tell the girls. Just arranged for Dave's wife to watch them that evening and borrowed a suit from one of our clients. A local tailor who owed me a favor for fixing his son's Vespa. Claire wore navy this time, sleek and simple, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a surge of pride walking in beside her. The country club was exactly what you'd expect. White columns, champagne towers, music soft enough to remind you to whisper. The valet took my keys with a sideways glance. We walked through a hall of polished mirrors and black marble floors until we reached the ballroom. And there he was. Ryan stood under a spotlight near the front of the stage, shaking hands with club members, laughing a little too loudly, the same salesman grin he wore when pitching his latest startup. My parents were by his side, of course, Dad in a navy tux, Mom in a champagne-colored dress, both holding flutes of something expensive. None of them saw us at first. Claire looped her arm through mine and leaned in. How far do you want to take this? I smiled. Let's find out. We mingled for a bit, just enough to get noticed. Claire made conversation look effortless, gliding from group to group like she belonged. And in a way, she did. Everyone wanted to talk to her. No one questioned who I was, until they read the name on my lapel. Robert Langston. I started to feel the murmurs. I saw a man whisper to his wife and glance at Ryan. That's when it began. The program started with a speech from the club director, followed by a short montage of Langston family achievements, photos of Ryan at college, Ryan on the cover of a business magazine, Ryan cutting a ribbon in front of some condo development that looked like a sterilized IKEA ad. And in every shot, my parents stood beside him like stage props, their smiles frozen in that brittle way people wear when they've invested everything in a single version of the truth. Then Ryan took the stage. Good evening, he began, voice smooth, practiced. When my parents first asked me to speak about legacy, I thought of the word roots. Because every great legacy starts with strong roots. He went on, weaving a speech that sounded like a TED Talk written by ChatGPT and edited by a publicist. There were quotes about family, grit, perseverance. Even a story about a fictional childhood struggle that, word for word, was actually mine. The bike crash. The stitches. The scar above my left eyebrow. Claire stiffened beside me. I didn't react. I just waited. Because I knew what was coming. Toward the end of the night, after Ryan's speech and a round of polite applause, the club director announced an open networking hour, where attendees could meet the Langston family and learn more about the projects they were involved in. Perfect. We waited until the line around Ryan had thinned. Then we approached. Mom saw me first. Her eyes flickered. Recognition, discomfort, calculation. Robert, she said, plastering on a smile. What a surprise. Dad didn't even try. He looked exhausted. His drink was half empty. Ryan turned. And for a moment, that smug confidence faltered. Evening, I said. Heck of a speech. Didn't know you were invited, he replied, sharp and flat. Didn't know you were still using my stories, I said. But here we are. Mom stepped in. Let's not make a scene. I'm not, I said, calm as ever. Just here to talk. Maybe clear up a few things for your friends. You know, since they're hearing the Langston legacy tonight. Ryan narrowed his eyes. What do you want? Claire answered before I could. He doesn't want anything. He just wants you to stop pretending he doesn't exist. A few heads turned. Mom hissed, lower your voice. Why? Claire snapped. You weren't whispering when you told me Robert's kids weren't welcome at Christmas because they'd ruin the perfect image. You weren't shy when you erased him from your photo albums. When you showed my boyfriend pictures of this man, she pointed at Ryan, and told me he was the boy in the stories. Silence rippled through the room. Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. Claire turned to me. You ready? I nodded. Showtime. I stepped up to the podium. Just like that. No microphone. No announcement. But the room noticed. They always do when someone breaks the script. Hi, I said. My name's Robert Langston. Some of you know me. Most of you don't. That's not by accident. I felt the heat of 100 eyes. I'm Ryan's twin. Grew up in the same house. Same schools. Same childhood. Except one of us got written out of the story. A few gasps. Some confused murmurs. I kept going. I'm the scar above his eyebrow. The stories he tells? They happened to me. The kid in the red truck photo? Me. The family memories you've seen curated into PowerPoints and holiday cards? Mostly mine. Just edited for convenience. Ryan stepped forward. All right, that's enough. No, I said, locking eyes with him. It's not. I looked out at the crowd. I own a business. Twin Wrench Garage. Custom auto restoration. We work with collectors, racers, and enthusiasts across 3 counties. My daughters help me run the shop. My girlfriend, Claire, helped design the brand. We started with nothing. No inheritance. No trust fund. No country club network. Claire stood beside me now, calm and proud. And still, I continued, we built something real. Something honest. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came to tell the truth. Because for years, this family made sure you only ever heard one side. I looked at my parents. At Ryan. Then back at the room. Well, now you've heard both. I walked off the stage. Claire beside me. The crowd was silent. Not stunned in a bad way, just frozen. Like glass that had finally cracked under pressure. And somewhere, far in the back, I heard someone start clapping. One of the collectors I'd spoken to weeks earlier. Then another. And another. I didn't stay to watch it unfold. We walked out the front doors, past the valet, into the night air. It smelled like spring rain and distant cigar smoke. Claire laughed, a quiet, triumphant sound. You really did it, she said. I took her hand. No, I said. We did. A week later, Twin Wrench Garage got 3 new business inquiries, 2 from people who'd attended the fundraiser. One of them was Carson. He wanted to sponsor a booth for us at the upcoming Vintage Auto Expo. A month after that, a reporter called asking for a follow-up to the article they'd written in spring. Said there was a new side to the Langston story that people wanted to hear. Ryan never reached out. Neither did my parents. And that was fine. I didn't need an apology. I had something better. A family I chose. A business I built. A story that finally belonged to me. And that little purple go-kart? It's still parked in the corner of the garage. Paint chipping. Glitter fading. Perfect.